Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Armand Owens here once again with another episode of the Unsung Leader Daily Leadership Nugget. Today is May 15th, 2020, and we're continuing on with the Questions Are the Answers series. And today's question, the question that I ask probably most often is, what could happen that I am not prepared for? What could happen that I am not prepared for? I do a little process called fear casting. You can kind of look that up. I stole that from Tim Ferriss, and if you've ever read any of his books, the 4-Hour Work Week, the 4-Hour Chef, Tools of Titans. I stole this from him. I think he got that from Tony Robbins. But what it is putting yourself in a position where you're visualizing, kind of the worst case scenario. I get in my car, full disclosure, when I get in my car and drive to work, I used to turn on the music, used to, vibe out or whatever on the way to work. But now what I do is just kind of prepare myself for what is the worst case scenario through some of the things that have happened throughout the week, or, some completely random. Hey, what would happen if armed guards came in to try to take over my building? Typically it's not that deep, but what happens if one of my sailors has somebody break into their house? What happens if somebody stole a car? One of my sailors stole a car and ran into a building. Or what would happen if there was a toxic gas leak on one of the submarines that happened to be within the shipyard? I think about these things in terms of being prepared for them, because at its core level, of being defined as a good leader, it really boils down to how you handle difficult situations. Obviously I love sports, and when the conversation about the greats come up, it's never about who did well during the regular season. It never comes down to that one game, game 67 in the NBA season, how somebody performed. No, it comes down to how you perform in the most difficult situations. That's how you're defined as the greats. And I can tell you that how you're defined as a leader is no different. Now, for me, I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. I love Matt Ryan. But when it comes to talking about some of the greats, when you look at the stats, the regular season stats, he's up there. He's quote unquote elite. But when it comes down to, hey, how does one perform in the most stressful situations, the most difficult situations? You really can't put them in there, right? Because that's how you're judged. That's how you're defined. Difficult situations are difficult because most people can't adequately handle them. That's why we have leaders. Difficult situations elicit strong emotions because of the tension that generates from the inability to easily resolve that issue. So it's safe to say that leaders are capable of navigating strong emotions in a way that others just are not. Other people can show up when times are easy, when the decisions that have to be made aren't hard. They can show up and and be there. But the true leaders are the ones that showing up in the midst of those difficult situations and can still navigate their own emotions, their own panic, their own fear in a way that is courageous, that is bold, that is directive, and that is overcoming. So it's best that you be ready. And I use this question to make sure that I'm ready for those times. Does it work all the time? No. Sometimes I succumb to my emotions just like anybody else. But I use this question as an intentional practice to overcome that panic, to overcome that fear. Because if I'm already ready, for what's coming, if I already understand what's coming, if I already seen that picture in my head, I've already seen that episode, then I already know what's coming around the corner. I'm not surprised by it. I'm not in panic mode. I'm not, too overcome by my emotions, where I'm just like everybody else in that scenario. I'm ready, to access, the highest forms the highest levels of my, cognitive processing, because I'm not being compromised by fear. I'm not being compromised by freeze, fight, or flight. That's why I utilize that question. That's why I asked myself those questions. That's why, hey, what could happen that I'm not ready for, that I'm not prepared for? Prepares you. A lot of times, people ask me, it's like, man, you don't really talk to yourself, in that way, asking yourself that question. Absolutely talk to myself, because I cannot believe everything that I think. I don't. I talk to myself to challenge old paradigms that may be housed in the back of my mind that have convinced me this is a way to move forward when it's not the way to move forward. So I ask myself those questions legitimately out loud. How can I better prepare myself? What could happen that I'm not prepared for? Can't believe everything that you think, because you're not responsible for everything that you think. Ooh. Not responsible for everything that you think. Everything that you have within your mind, all of your beliefs, all of your paradigms that you hold, you are not necessarily all responsible for them. So you have to challenge them. You got to challenge them. And the last thing that you want to do is put yourself in a scenario where you're going to be the leader, but you're not prepared for what's coming around the corner. You got to be prepared. And this is one of the things that I use to prepare myself for those things coming around the corner. You got to remember, being a great leader is not an accident. It's not an accident. It is a culmination of intentional actions from persons dedicated to the service of those that he or she has the privilege of leading. Intentional. Culmination of intentional actions. And asking questions of myself is one of my intentional actions that allows me to better serve the people that I lead. I hope you adopt it. If you got any questions, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, feedback. Let me know. I appreciate you guys for listening. And I'm coming back tomorrow with another one. All right. Have a good one. Happy Friday.